People think cemeteries are quiet, peaceful even. But when the clock strikes midnight and the mist crawls over the gravestones like fingers searching for something lost, peace is the last thing you'll feel. I learned that my first night on the job. I learned that some graves don't stay silent, and some of the dead refuse to rest. Before I tell you everything that happened, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. What you're about to hear might make you rethink every shadow you've ever seen in a cemetery. They hired me because no one else would take the night shift. The place was called St. Ethel Cemetery, a 100-year-old patch of land on the outskirts of town. The pay was good, too good, and when I asked why, the caretaker, a frail old man with a crooked back, just said, "Because not everyone makes it to morning." I laughed at that then. I shouldn't have. My first night started calm enough. The fog was thick, clinging to my uniform like breath on glass. My flashlight cut through it in thin slices, revealing rows of leaning tombstones, some cracked, others swallowed by weeds. The silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional flutter of wings or the distant bark of a dog. The office was a small brick shed near the gates. Inside, there was a single flickering light, a dusty logbook, and an ancient radio that buzzed more static than sound. The caretaker had left before dusk, muttering something about never being around when the church bells go wrong. I didn't ask what that meant. Around 1 a.m., I started my rounds. The air grew colder, unnaturally so. My breath fogged in front of me. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the bells of the old chapel begin to ring, slow and uneven. The caretaker had said they hadn't worked in decades. I told myself it was the wind, but then the radio inside the shed crackled to life, even though I'd left it off. A man's voice whispered, distorted and hoarse, "Grave 23. He's waiting," I froze. The radio fell silent again, as if it had never spoken. I checked the logbook. There was a grave 23, a new one. A man named Harold Finch buried 3 nights ago. I thought maybe someone was playing a prank. So I walked there. The fog thickened, turning the world to grey. My boots sank into damp soil. I found the grave easily. It was fresh, a mound of loose dirt under a crooked wooden cross. The nameplate was still clean. I shined my light down, expecting nothing. Then the earth moved just once. A slow, heavy shift. As if something underneath had exhaled, I stumbled backward, dropped the flashlight. It rolled to the edge of the grave, casting wild, shaking light. That's when I saw the hand, pale, muddy and trembling, break through the surface for a single second before sinking back again. I ran. I didn't care about the rules or the job. I locked myself inside the shed, shaking. The radio was silent. The bells had stopped, but in the corner of the room, the logbook had turned to a new page on its own. In neat, precise handwriting that wasn't mine, there was a single line written under the next date, "Second shift confirmed." When I showed up the next night, someone else had signed in above my name, someone who'd been dead for 15 years. I didn't want to go back. All day, the memory of that pale hand crawling from the dirt replayed in my head like a scene I couldn't unsee. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the cold breath of the cemetery fog on my neck. But still, I returned, because I needed the money, because I convinced myself I imagined it, because I wanted to prove I wasn't afraid. But deep down, I knew something was waiting for me. When I reached the cemetery gates, the caretaker wasn't there. Again, his tiny house beside the entrance was dark. I found the key under the flower pot just like before and stepped inside. The iron gate creaked open in a way that sounded too much like a groan. The air hit me like a wall, colder than last night, heavier, thicker. I locked the gate behind me and headed to the shed. That's when I noticed the logbook. It was already open on the desk and someone had signed in name William Hargrove, time 10:07 p.m. The pen was still on the page, as if dropped seconds ago, but that wasn't possible because I recognized the name. William Hargrove had been a night guard here 15 years ago. He disappeared during his shift. They never found his body. I stared at the signature. The ink wasn't faded. It glistened, fresh, My hands trembled as I touched the page. It was slightly warm. "Hello?" I called out, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Anyone here?" Silence. The radio was off this time, but somehow the silence felt louder than static. I checked the corners of the shed. Empty. The door had been locked. There was no way someone slipped in, unless they were never gone. I looked down at the logbook again, under his name. Someone had written a note. "Don't let them ring the bells." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What bells?" I whispered. "The chapel. The broken chapel I heard last night." I stepped outside, flashlight in hand. The fog was already gathering around the tombstones, rising like smoke. The moon hung low and sickly yellow. Every instinct was telling me to leave, but something else, something I can't explain, pulled me deeper in. As I walked, the cemetery felt different. Not just eerie, occupied. Like every grave had shifted a few inches closer. Like every shadow leaned in to listen. The chapel stood near the center of the grounds, old and rotten. Its roof sagged. Its bell tower tilted, covered in black mold. Supposedly, the bell mechanism had rusted decades ago, but last night it rang. I reached the chapel steps. My flashlight flickered, dimmed, then died. "Not now," I muttered. Smacking it, nothing. The air around me grew painfully cold. I heard footsteps behind me, slow, crunching on gravel. I spun around. "Hello?" No one. The footsteps stopped, then resumed. Only now they were circling me. I turned in every direction. Nothing there. But the sound moved, closer, closer, until it felt like someone was standing right beside my ear, breathing. I ran inside the chapel. The heavy door slammed shut behind me, though I didn't touch it. The scent of rot and damp wood filled my lungs. Faded pews lined the aisle. The altar was covered in dust and dead flowers. Then I looked up. The rope. The one that connected to the bell tower. It hung perfectly still. I stared at it, and it moved, very slowly, twisting, tightening, like an invisible hand was wrapping it around a wrist. My breath caught. Then, ding! The bell above me rang once, not loud, but deep, a sound that echoed inside my bones. I clamped my hands over my ears. Ding! The second ring was louder. Outside, the cemetery groaned, the ground trembled, graves shifted, and then I heard voices, dozens of them, hundreds, whispering, crying, humming, rising from the dirt all around the chapel like a chorus of the dead. The bell rope jerked downward violently, as if pulled by something furious and unseen, and in the echo of the third bell, something answered. When I stepped outside, the graves were open, and the footprints in the dirt weren't leading out. They were forming a circle around me. When I pushed the chapel door open, everything was silent again, too silent. The fog had thinned. The moon hung high and white, casting long shadows across the cemetery. The air felt still, as if nothing had ever moved. As if the whispers, the bells, the shifting graves had all been some fever dream. But I knew what I saw, and I knew what I heard. I stepped forward slowly, expecting to see open graves, torn earth, footprints, but the ground looked untouched, smooth, perfect, like the cemetery had been reset. My heart pounded. No, I saw them. I walked to grave 23, Harold Finch. The dirt was packed tight, just as it had been before anything happened. I knelt down and pressed my fingers into the soil, cold, solid. "How?" I whispered. I moved from grave to grave, searching for any sign of disturbance. Nothing, not a single footprint. The grass stood upright, untouched by movement. The world felt staged, like someone had wiped it clean or covered it up. I backed away, breathing hard. The air tasted metallic. My ears rang faintly like a leftover echo of the bell. "This isn't real," I muttered. "I'm tired. I'm stressed." I didn't sleep. But deep inside, something else whispered back, "Or they put everything back before you saw." I froze. Who was they? Why would they hide it? I forced myself to finish a round of the cemetery. My flashlight flickered as I walked between the tombstones. Each time the beam dimmed, I felt eyes on me. Not from one direction, from everywhere. When I reached the back fence, I saw it, a single footprint, small, bare, human, half buried in the dirt. but fresh. The soil was still moist, like someone had stepped there minutes ago. I aimed my light at the ground. More prints, leading away from the graves. No, not away, forming a circle. My throat went dry. They surrounded the chapel. A ring of footprints, perfectly spaced, like people had stood in a circle. Watching me. I spun around, scanning the darkness. Who's there? No answer, only wind. Soft and steady, too steady. Like breathing. I stumbled back to the shed. The door was open. I never left it open. The light was on inside. I never turned it on. My pulse hammered in my ears as I stepped through the doorway. The logbook was open again, but this time, the page wasn't blank. There were 5 names, each signed in different handwriting, each with a timestamp from tonight. 10:12 p.m., Harold Finch. 10:29 p.m., Margaret Elwood. 10:44 p.m., Thomas Gray. 11:03 p.m., Judith Wells. 11:27 p.m., William Hargrove. I recognized every name. They were all buried here. My vision blurred. I gripped the table to steady myself. Beneath the names, one final message was written in large, sharp letters. Stop ringing the bell. I stepped back. The air in the shed shifted. The temperature dropped. The radio clicked on by. Itself static, then breathing not. Mine was slow, ragged, right behind me. I turned around. No one. There, the door slammed shut. The light flickered, then held steady. In the corner of the room, someone was standing, a tall shadow, human-shaped, motionless, facing me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The air felt thick as water. The shadow tilted its head slowly to the side, like it was studying me. Then it raised one arm and pointed directly at the logbook, at the next empty line, at the empty space where my name should go. The shadow stepped forward, its feet never touching the ground, and I realized it wasn't asking me to sign in. It was telling me I already had. I stared at that blank line in the logbook as the shadow pointed at it. My name wasn't there, yet somehow I felt a sinking certainty deep in my gut. Like a memory I couldn't access was trying to surface. Like I had already been here before. Like I had already written it. No, I whispered. That's impossible. The shadow didn't move, didn't speak. It only stood there, its form darker than the room itself, like the light refused to touch it. My hand reached slowly toward the logbook, trembling. Not because I wanted to, but because something inside me needed to know. Before I could touch the page, the shadow stepped forward. It didn't walk. It slid, silently weightless, like it was gliding over water. It stopped just inches from me. I couldn't see its face. Maybe it didn't have one, but I felt it staring into me, through me. A presence so heavy I could barely breathe. What do you want? I managed to choke out, silence. Then the radio crackled. Midnight. The word was whispered in a voice I didn't recognize. Low, broken, like vocal cords made of dust. I spun toward the radio, but it was just static again. When I turned back, the shadow was gone. The shed felt empty, but wrong. The air still held its weight, like the room remembered it even after it left. I backed away from the logbook and stumbled outside. The fresh night air hit my lungs like ice. I checked my watch. 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes until midnight. My mind raced. What happened at midnight? Why did it warn me? Why did they all sign in tonight? What did the bell have to do with it? I needed answers. There was only one person who might give them to me, the caretaker. His house was near the gate. I made my way across the grounds, moving faster than usual. The fog was gone now, replaced by a still, heavy clarity. Too clear. I could see every tombstone, every tree, every shadow. None of them moved. None of them made a sound. It didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the entire cemetery was holding its breath. I reached the caretaker's front door and knocked hard. No response. I knocked again, louder. Hello? I need to talk to you. Nothing. I grabbed the handle. It turned easily. The door creaked open. The lights were off inside, but a faint glow came from down the hallway. I stepped in cautiously. The floorboards groaned under my weight. The air smelled like old wood and something else, something sour, something rotten. Hello? I whispered, Still silence. I followed the glow. It was coming from the caretaker's bedroom. The door was half open. A candle flickered on the nightstand, almost burned down to nothing. The bed was tucked in, neatly, empty, but someone had left. Something on top of the blanket, a box, small, wooden, old, carved, with the same pattern I'd seen on the sides of the chapel pews. My heart pounded as I lifted the lid. Inside was a single brass key and a photograph. My breath stopped. The photo was black and white, old, faded. It showed the cemetery from decades ago, before the fences, before the chapel was ruined. In the photo, there were 5 men standing in the center of the cemetery, holding shovels. Graves open behind them. I recognized their faces. Harold Finch, Margaret Elwood, Thomas Gray, Judith Wells, William Hargrove, the same names from the logbook. They were alive in this photo and standing at the front of the group, holding the shovel like a trophy. Was the caretaker. He wasn't old in this picture. He was young, barely 30, exactly how he looked the first time I met him. My knees went weak. This photo was at least 60 years old. That's when I heard it. A soft creak from the hallway, footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer. I turned toward the open door and froze. Something was standing just beyond the light of the candle, tall, thin, smiling. It opened its mouth to speak, but the voice that came out was my own. It spoke in my voice, perfectly. Tone, rhythm, breath, everything. But the lips that formed the words didn't belong to me. They belonged to the thing standing in the hallway. Its smile was impossibly wide. Too many teeth. Too white. I couldn't move. I couldn't blink. My own voice echoed back at me like mockery. "Why are you here?" It asked, sounding exactly like me. My throat tightened. "Who are you?" It tilted its head. The candlelight didn't quite reach its eyes. There were no reflections. "No life, you already know," it whispered, still using my voice. No, I didn't. But the way it said it, like it was stating a fact, made my blood run cold. I glanced at the photograph still in my hand. The 5 people, the young caretaker, the open graves. I looked back up. The hallway was empty. It was gone, just like the shadow in the shed, just like the graves in the fog. Gone, but not gone. The silence that followed felt heavier than its presence. I backed away slowly, clutching the brass key in my fist, the photo in the other. I needed to leave. I needed to think. I needed bang. The front door of the caretaker's house slammed shut. I jumped. The candle flickered violently. Someone was in the house with me. No, not someone, something. I rushed down the hallway, but halfway there I stopped. The walls were wrong. They were breathing, slowly expanding, then collapsing. Like lungs, a low, deep hum vibrated through the wood beneath my hand. I stepped back. The wallpaper pulsed. I ran. I didn't care if the floor collapsed beneath me. I sprinted to the front door and yanked it open. Cold night air hit me, sharp and clean. I nearly fell down the steps in my rush. The cemetery stretched out in front of me, silent and still, but no longer empty. There were people standing among the tombstones, dozens of them. They faced away from me, motionless, like statues. Some wore old clothes from the 1800s. Some were in modern shirts and jeans. Some were half-rotted. Some looked freshly deceased. And all of them stood beside a grave with their head bowed, praying or listening or waiting. My breath came out in shudders. I took a step back toward the house. The caretaker was on the porch behind me, smiling gently, just like he had on my first night. Except his eyes. His eyes were wrong, too wide, too bright, too awake. "I was hoping you wouldn't come back," he said quietly. His voice was calm, almost kind. "Where were you?" I managed to say. He looked past me at the field of silent bodies. His smile faded. "Trying to stop them," he whispered. "But it's too late now." My skin prickled. "Stop who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the brass key in my hand and flinched. "Where did you get that?" "In your house." His face turned pale. "I never put it there." "Then who did?" He looked slowly toward the chapel. I followed his gaze. Every head in the cemetery turned toward us at the same time, not gradually, not humanly, just snap, dead still, then all faces facing Forward, hundreds of eyes locked on me. The caretaker spoke without moving his lips. "They've chosen you." The night wind stopped. The trees stopped. The world stopped. My heart pounded so hard I thought my ribs would break. Chosen for what? I whispered. His answer was so soft I barely heard it. To finish what we started. The ground trembled slightly under my feet, as if something enormous was moving beneath the soil. My skin crawled. "What did you start?" He looked at me, guilt flooding his face. "The bell," he said. "The bell was never supposed to ring." Before I could ask another question, dong, the chapel bell rang, once deep, heavy, final. Every head in the cemetery raised slowly, every pair of eyes, dead or alive, locked onto me with perfect, unnatural precision, and then they all smiled. As the second bell began to ring, the ground split open beneath my feet, and dozens of hands burst from the soil to drag me down. The second bell struck the air like a hammer. Dong! The sound didn't just echo, it vibrated through the ground, through the trees, through my bones. The soil beneath my boots cracked like glass. A deep groan rose from the earth, like the land itself was waking up. Then the ground split open. I stumbled back, but it was too late. Hands, dozens of them, erupted from the soil. Pale, skeletal, rotten, fresh, some with dirt caked under the nails, some still wearing burial bracelets from funeral homes. They shot out and clamped around my ankles, my calves, my wrists. I screamed as they pulled, hard. The caretaker reached toward me. "Don't let them take you." But even he didn't step closer. He was afraid to touch me, help me. I shouted, "I can't." His voice cracked. "If I pull you out, they'll take me instead." The hands yanked again, harder. My legs sank into the cold, wet earth. The soil swallowed me up to the knees. I clawed at the ground, but it crumbled like ash in my hands. The bell rang a third time. Dong! The air turned solid. The night went silent. All the figures in the cemetery, dead, alive whatever they were, watched without blinking, and they smiled wider. Some of them giggled, some of them whispered prayers, some of them licked their lips. I felt another surge downward. My waist disappeared. The dirt pressed against my ribs, crushing the air from my lungs. The cold wrapped around me like water at the bottom of a lake. I could hear the soil shifting, as if something massive was moving beneath me, waiting to receive me. "No, no," I gasped, grabbing at the torn grass. "I'm not dying here." A sharp pain tore through my hand. I looked down. Something had grabbed me by the wrist, not a corpse's hand, a living one. The caretaker. He had plunged his arm into the ground up to his shoulder, grabbing for me with everything he had. His eyes were wild. "Listen to me. They can only take you if you stay silent." "What?" "Fight them!" Yell, scream. "Call your own name!" "Remind them you're still alive." The earth squeezed my chest. It felt like a coffin closing. Hands pulled my hair. My throat burned. I could barely speak, but I forced the words out. "My name is—" Dirt filled my mouth. Cold, bitter, alive. More hands reached from below. They weren't just pulling, they were climbing me, crawling up my body like insects, trying to smother me completely. I spat mud and screamed again, louder. "My name is—" The caretaker roared, pulling with all his strength. His feet dug into the ground. "Say it!" "I'm still alive." For a split second, all the hands froze. The earth stopped moving. The air held its breath. The caretaker's grip tightened. One more time. I summoned every ounce of air in my lungs and bellowed into the night. "I'm not dead." Silence. The ground shuddered, and then exploded upward. Soil burst like a geyser. The hands recoiled, shrieking like burning animals. I was launched out of the hole, crashing onto the grass. I rolled across the ground, coughing up dirt, lungs burning, body shaking uncontrollably. The caretaker grabbed me and dragged me away from the pit, panting hard. "Get up! Get up!" I tried. My legs barely worked. All around us, the dead figures trembled. Like puppets on strings pulled too tight, their smiles collapsed, their eyes went empty, every single one of them. Turned their heads toward the chapel. Slowly, in perfect unison, the caretaker went pale. "Oh God, what does that mean?" I gasped. He didn't look at me. He didn't blink. His voice dropped to a whisper of pure fear. It means the bell didn't call them this time, he swallowed. It called her. The chapel door creaked open on its own, and something with a woman's voice began to crawl out of the dark. The chapel door creaked open with a sound that didn't belong to wood. It was wet, organic, like flesh tearing slowly apart. The night air grew colder, pressing against my skin like invisible hands. Every grave, every tombstone, every figure in the cemetery turned toward that door and knelt. Even the caretaker stepped back, eyes wide with dread. I had never seen him afraid like this, not even when the ground tried to swallow me whole. "What is that?" I whispered. He didn't move his lips when he answered. "The reason the bell must never ring." A hand slid out from the darkness of the chapel. Not pale, not rotten, not skeletal, perfect, smooth skin, feminine, too clean, too flawless. Like it wasn't made of flesh at all, but porcelain. Every finger impossibly straight. Nails long and black, tapering to sharp points, then another hand. Both gripped the doorframe. And the wood splintered beneath her touch. She pulled herself out. At first, I thought she was crawling, but she wasn't. She floated. Her limbs moved in slow, graceful motions, but her feet never touched the ground. Her long black hair dragged behind her like spilled ink. Her head hung low, hiding her face. The night bent around her. My lungs refused to fill. The caretaker didn't breathe. The entire cemetery waited. She stopped just outside the chapel door, hovering above the stone steps. Her arms hung limp. Her hair swayed, though there was no wind. Then she sniffed the air, not like a human, not like an animal. It was deeper, sharper, like she was inhaling the very life from the world. Her head twitched once, twice, then jerked violently toward me. Her hair flew aside, and I saw her. Face beautiful, terrifyingly beautiful, skin like marble, lips slightly parted. Eyes, my blood froze. She had no eyes, just empty black hollows that bled slowly down her cheeks, but I knew she could still see me. She smiled, not wide, not monstrous, soft, loving, wrong. My body went numb. My mind screamed at me to run, but my legs refused. I was rooted to the spot, as if the earth held me in place for her. The caretaker grabbed my arm. "Don't look at her!" Too late, her head tilted, curious. Like she was studying me, recognizing me, choosing me. Then I heard it, not with my ears, inside my skull. "You rang the bell for me." My heart stopped. Her voice wasn't just inside my head, it was inside my memories, inside my dreams. I hadn't had yet. She floated closer, no sound, no weight, just an elegant glide. Like death in the shape of a woman. The caretaker shoved me behind him.
"Stay back!"
She paused and smiled at him, a different smile. "Grateful. You kept them buried for me," her voice whispered. The caretaker's eyes filled with horror. No, I was trying to contain you." She tilted her head, then opened her mouth, wider, 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 her jaw unhinged like a snake. Skin stretched until I thought it would tear. But it didn't, and then she screamed. The sound wasn't sound. It was pressure, like being crushed by thunder. The ground rippled outward like water. The chapel shattered. Tombstones cracked. The cemetery figures slammed their hands to the ground in worship. I fell to my knees, ears bleeding, vision shaking. The caretaker collapsed beside me, eyes wide with terror. "She's not a spirit," he gasped. "She's not the dead." His voice broke. "She's what keeps them dead." She glided over the graves now, and as she passed, each corpse in the ground moaned. Not in fear, in devotion. The caretaker grabbed my face, forcing my eyes to meet his. "Listen to me. If she marks you, you won't die." I blinked. "What?" "You'll never die." My heart stopped. "She'll keep you." I turned. She was right in front of me, close enough for me to feel her breath. Even though she didn't breathe, she raised one single finger and touched my forehead. It was cold, it was gentle, it was final. The world went silent, and a woman's voice whispered inside my skull, "Welcome home." When her cold finger touched my forehead, the world went silent. Not quiet, silent. No wind, no breathing, no heartbeat. Even my thoughts froze, like someone pressed pause on my soul. Then sound returned. But wrong, I heard whispers. Not around me, inside me. Hundreds of voices layered over each other, murmuring in languages I didn't know, praying, crying, laughing, begging. My skin crawled as something spread from the point of contact, cold, then warm, then alive. It moved through my bloodstream like liquid shadow. I tried to scream, I couldn't. I tried to move, I couldn't. She leaned closer, her face inches from mine. Those empty eye sockets pulled me in like black holes, and then she stopped, her head turned. Slowly, toward the caretaker. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He just looked. Tired. Please, he whispered, voice cracking. Not him. Her lips curved into a soft smile. She raised her hand and touched his chest. He didn't flinch, he just closed his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered for a moment. Nothing happened. Then he aged, not gradually, instantly. His skin sagged. His hair turned white. His spine twisted. His breath rattled. His eyes dimmed. Decades crushed him in seconds. He collapsed to his knees, coughing, gasping. Bones brittle as glass. She didn't kill him. She gave him back every year he ever stole. He looked at me with pain in his voice. Run, while you still remember how. A tremor shook the ground. The graves rumbled. The silent figures watching us twitched, glitching like broken puppets. Something massive shifted beneath the soil. She turned her gaze back to me, and I felt it. The mark burned into my forehead, then sank deeper, into my mind, into my memory. Flashes, a shovel, moonlight, open graves, laughter, 5 people standing in a circle, a hand ringing a bell, a woman crawling out of the chapel, my voice calling her name. I stumbled backward. No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. The voices inside me whispered, yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I clutched my head. Stop! She tilted her head. Almost curious. The caretaker, now barely strong enough to speak, rasped, the mark. It's waking your memory. What memory? His gaze was filled with sorrow. The one you buried here. I shook my head violently. I've never been here before. The ground beneath me darkened. I looked down. The dirt at my feet turned to mud, then to water. Black, still water. Like a reflection, I saw myself in it, but not me now. Me in different clothes. Me younger. Me smiling, and I wasn't alone. 4 others stood beside me. Harold Finch, Margaret Elwood, Thomas Gray, Judith Wells. We stood over fresh graves, shovels in our hands, and I was laughing. No, I whispered. This isn't real. This isn't real. The caretaker's voice shook. We thought we could control her. Use her, keep her asleep, and feed her what she wanted. My reflection turned its head and looked at me. I saw myself. Ring the bell. The water went still. The reflection smiled, my exact smile. I fell backward onto the grass, shaking. No, I didn't. I didn't do this. The caretaker almost whispered. We all did. I looked at him. His face was ancient, crumbling, like he had outlived his body by decades. You were one of them, I breathed. He nodded slowly. So was I. My mouth went dry. What are we? His eyes filled with tears. Gravekeepers. His voice broke. Who became the graves? The ground opened beneath me again, but this time it didn't pull me down. It breathed me in. The soil rose around me like arms. Gentle and familiar, like it knew me, like it had been waiting. The mark on my forehead throbbed like a second heartbeat, and in the back of my mind, a memory unlocked. I heard my own voice from long ago. Don't worry. If she chooses us, we'll never die. The world tilted, stars twisted, time folded in on itself, and suddenly I remembered everything. Someone spoke behind me, using my voice from years ago. I told you we'd be back to finish it. I told you we'd be back to finish it. Hearing my own voice behind me froze every muscle in my body. Not the voice I had now, but my voice from years ago, younger, confident, alive. I turned slowly, and there I was, standing among the gravestones, wearing old clothes caked in dirt, sleeves rolled up, shovel in hand. My hair was shorter. My smile was wider. My eyes were wrong, empty of guilt, empty of fear. The younger version of me leaned casually on the shovel and grinned. You took your time remembering. My mouth went dry. What are you? He raised an eyebrow. What you were, before you forgot. No, I hissed. I never... The ground shifted, and the past bled into the present. For a split second, the world around me changed. The cemetery was new again. Lanterns, no fences, freshly dug earth, dozens of bodies laid out in rows. I saw myself and the other four, Harold, Margaret, Thomas, Judith, standing around the bell, laughing, drunk on power. Younger me stepped forward, voice calm. We didn't guard this place. We made it. The images hit me like lightning, memory after memory flooding in. We were hired to maintain St. Ethel's Cemetery in the 1950s, but the dead didn't stay buried. Something in the ground stirred. We heard whispers. We saw figures at night. Instead of running, we experimented. We wanted to control it. We used the bell to call the presence, to bargain with it. We fed it bodies, new graves, old corpses, anything to keep it satisfied, and she loved us for it, the younger me said softly. The woman, her, hovered behind him, watching me with those eyeless sockets, silent, patient, proud. She gave us a gift, he continued. The mark, the memory, the promise. My voice trembled. What promise? He smiled, stepping closer, that we would never be forgotten. The wind howled through the trees, though the air was still. The silent figures around the graves bowed their heads lower, as if honoring royalty. My thoughts raced. If that was us. Why don't I remember? Younger me chuckled darkly. Because one of us broke the pact. My heart slammed. Who? We both turned. The caretaker stood by the chapel, his aged body shaking, his eyes full of shame. Younger me's smile vanished. He betrayed us. He tried to seal her away. He rang the bell one last time, not to call her, but to warn the living. The caretaker's voice was hoarse. It was wrong, all of it. We were children, drunk on the dead. I wanted to undo it. You failed, younger me snarled. You buried our memories. You cursed us to live as ghosts in our own lives. The caretaker staggered forward. I made myself old so I could stay and watch over the graves, to keep her from waking. But you, he pointed at me. You were the strongest, the most loyal. That's why I had to erase you the hardest. Erase me? My stomach twisted. You took my memory. Yes, the caretaker said, tears streaming down his ancient face, to stop you from finishing what we started. You were supposed to live a normal life, far from here, and never come back. I stared at him, realization crashing in, but I did. The caretaker collapsed to his knees. Because the bell doesn't just call her, it calls you. My younger self grinned wide. And now you're back. The mark on my forehead pulsed, warm. Hungry, the dead around us began to rise, not climbing from graves, floating from them, bodies lifting into the air like marionettes on invisible strings. Their mouths opened in unison, and they spoke with my voice. Finish it, I stumbled back. Finish what? Younger me's eyes glowed with cold fire. The ritual. My breath stopped. What ritual? He stepped so close I could feel the cold radiating from his skin. The one we started the night she chose us. He leaned in. And the one only you can complete. Before I could speak, the bell tower groaned. The rope inside the chapel moved on its own, tightened, lifted, ready. My younger self looked at me with a smile that felt like a tomb. Closing, she's waiting. He stepped aside and pointed to the chapel. Ring the bell. His grin widened into something inhuman, and set us all free. The rope dropped into my hands, and the mark on my skin commanded me to pull. The rope was in my hands, heavy, wet, pulsing, like it had veins of its own. I tried to drop it, but it clung to my palms, threads of red oozing between my fingers. The air inside the chapel felt alive, breathing with me. The dead outside whispered one word in rhythm with my heartbeat. Pull, 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 no, I muttered. No, I'm not doing this. The mark on my forehead burned like fire. I smelled smoke, but there was none. My younger self stood in the doorway watching with that hollow smile. You already did, he said softly. Every time you remember, you ring it again. I staggered back. What does that mean? He stepped closer. This place isn't a cemetery. It's a memory, ours. And you're trapped inside the moment you created it. My chest tightened. The chapel walls pulsed. The wood turned to flesh. the crucifix above the altar twisted into bone. Outside, the fog thickened until only the faint glow of the graves remained. "She's waiting," he whispered. "You kept her hungry too long." The rope in my hands tightened, dragging my arms upward. I fought it, every muscle shaking, but something stronger than muscle, something inside me, wanted it to happen. The caretaker's voice echoed from somewhere in the mist. "Don't give in. If you ring it again, she'll open the ground forever." My younger self smiled. "And close it around us just like we promised." The caretaker appeared at the chapel door, bent, trembling, bleeding from the eyes. "You don't understand," he rasped. "She feeds on time. Every ring erases another century. You'll bury the world." The rope jerked hard. I fell forward, catching myself on the altar. The mark burned hotter. I could see faint shapes under my skin, black lines crawling toward my heart. I screamed and tore at them, but my fingers passed through as if I were smoke. My younger self knelt beside me. "You wanted to be remembered." "Eternal life," you said. "Well, this is it." "I didn't mean this." "You never mean what lasts forever." The bell above us moaned in the wind that wasn't wind. A low note hummed, eager, waiting. My reflection in the cracked chapel window moved before I did. It smiled, lifted the rope, and whispered, "Finish it." I grabbed the rope with both hands. My will shattered. The pull wasn't mine anymore. It was hers. Her whisper filled my head. 3 more rings, and the door opens. The caretaker crawled toward me. "If you ring that bell, everything dies. Past, present, all of it." My younger self laughed. "You still think death is the end?" The ground outside split open again. I saw faces, millions of them, pressing against the soil like glass, mouths moving in silent prayer. The sky dimmed, stars snuffed out one by one. The world was holding its breath. I turned to the caretaker. "Tell me how to stop it!" He coughed blood. "Break the rope. Break the link." I wrapped it around my arm and pulled until skin tore. The fibers screamed like living things. I yanked harder again, until the rope snapped. The bell didn't ring. The sound died in its throat. Silence fell like ash. My younger self stared at me, furious. "You ruined everything." "She's still coming," the caretaker whispered. The chapel shook violently. Dust and bone rained from the ceiling. From the hole where the rope had broken, blood began to drip. Then pour, then flood. My younger self backed away, whispering, "No. She's not supposed to bleed." The caretaker grabbed my arm. "Run." We stumbled outside as the bell tower collapsed behind us, spilling blood and darkness across the graves. The sky tore open. A single enormous eye blinked in the clouds, black and endless, and then a second bell rang. The rope was gone, the chapel destroyed, but the sound came from inside my chest. The second bell shouldn't have rung. The rope was gone. The tower was destroyed. The sound didn't come from the sky, or the chapel, or the graves. It came from inside me, Dong. A vibration tore through my ribs. My spine arched. My vision went white. I tasted iron. I fell to my knees, clutching my chest as if something were trying to crawl out of me. "No!" The caretaker yelled. "Not him. Take me instead." The air warped. Every grave in the cemetery trembled, soil rising and falling in sync with my heartbeat. The dead, standing, floating, kneeling, lifted their heads. Every eye turned to me. Smiles spread across rotting and living faces alike. They didn't look afraid. They looked devoted. The caretaker grabbed my shoulders. His hands shook violently. "Listen to me. Fight it. If you let her in, you become the bell." My mind spun. What does that mean? "She won't need the chapel. She won't need the rope. She'll ring you to open the ground." I tried to stand, but the earth grabbed my ankles. Not hands this time, roots, black. Thorny roots that burst from the soil and coiled around my legs, feeding on heat, drinking my blood. My breath hitched, and then I felt her, not beside me, inside me. Her voice slid into my mind like silk dipped in poison. "You were always mine." My younger self appeared at the edge of the broken chapel, watching with calm acceptance. "You can't stop it. We made this promise long ago." "I don't remember that." I screamed. He smirked. "Memory doesn't change truth, Dong." The bell inside me rang again. The sky cracked like glass. The stars flickered and went out. The moon bled at the edges. The world was unraveling, time, reality, sound, all warping around the rhythm of my heartbeat. I dug my fingers into the dirt, desperate to anchor myself. The caretaker leaned close, voice ragged. "Listen to me. You are stronger than her." I looked at him, trembling. "Then why did you erase my memory?" His eyes filled with pain. "Because you were the only one she truly loved." The words hit like a blade. "Loved?" I whispered. "I don't mean affection," he choked. "I mean possession. Out of all of us, she chose you. You were her voice, her hands, her ritual. You were the one who rang the bell the first time, and the only one she wants to ring it the last." My stomach dropped. "So I did this." "No," he said. "We all did. But you were the key." The ground groaned. The roots surged higher, wrapping around my waist. My skin burned where they touched. My veins darkened, pumping shadow. I felt myself slipping, falling into something ancient. A memory deeper than thought. A woman's face. Black hair, hollow eyes, a whisper in the dark. "Let me in, and I will make you eternal." My younger self stepped closer. "You said yes." The caretaker screamed, "Don't listen to him." But I remembered. Oh God, I remembered, standing in the old graveyard at night, holding the bell rope, smiling as I rang it, not to summon her, to invite her, because I loved the power. I loved the fear. I loved the way the ground trembled beneath my feet. I loved her. Dong! The third ring exploded through my chest. I screamed as black fire shot from my mouth like smoke. The graves burst open, dirt flying into the air. The dead rose higher, lifted by invisible strings. They weren't corpses anymore. They were witnesses. The caretaker's voice broke into a sob. "It's happening." My younger self smiled with pride, eyes glowing like dying stars. "She's coming through you," I gasped, trying to force air into my lungs. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Make it stop," I begged. "Help me." The caretaker crawled to me, placing his shaking hands on my face. "I can," he whispered. My eyes widened. "How?" His lips trembled. "By doing what I should have done the night I erased you." The earth split open. Behind him, he leaned in and spoke 3 words that froze my blood. "I have to kill you. I have to kill you." The caretaker's voice was barely more than a breath, but the words sliced deeper than any blade. His old, shaking hands cupped my face as if he were afraid I'd break. But his eyes burned with desperate certainty. I stared at him in disbelief. "You can't—" "I have to," he choked. "Before she finishes taking you, before you become her bell, before the ground opens for good." The third ring still echoed inside my bones. My body trembled, veins burning black under my skin. I was losing control. The air tasted like ash. The world dimmed at the edges. "She's already in me," I whispered. He nodded slowly. Tears streamed down his aged face. "Not completely. I can still reach you. But if the 4th bell rings—" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I felt it. 4 was the end. No more doors. No more barriers. No living, no dead. One world, swallowed by her. The caretaker reached behind his coat and pulled out a knife, old, rusted, stained, not, with blood, with grave dirt. My breath caught when I saw it. I knew that. Blade, I had held it before. Long ago. "We forged this together," the caretaker said. His voice shook, but not from weakness, from memory. "The 5 of us. To kill her if she ever turned on us. Did it work?" I asked, my voice cracking. He looked down at the knife, and his silence was the answer. She could not be killed, so we made another plan. "If we couldn't kill her," he whispered, "we'd kill the bell." Me, suddenly everything made sense. "You tried to kill me before," I breathed. "That's why I don't remember. That's why I forgot the pact. You failed and erased me instead." His shoulders shook as he nodded. "I couldn't do it. You were like my brother. I erased your memory, left you in another town, prayed you'd never come back. But the bell called me," I muttered. "She called me. She always will," he said softly. "Because you're the only one who ever rang it willingly." My stomach twisted. "So what now? You think you can kill me this time?" He lifted the knife. His hands didn't shake. "I don't think," he said quietly. I know. The earth rumbled beneath us. The black roots tightened around my legs, sensing what was about to happen. I tried to move, but the mark on my forehead flared. Hot, angry, she was inside me, and she heard every word. The caretaker raised the blade over my heart. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I closed my eyes and felt calm. Maybe he was right. Maybe I deserved this. Maybe dying was better than becoming the thing that destroyed the world. His hand came down. Steel met skin and stopped. The caretaker trembled violently, frozen mid-strike. His eyes bulged. His mouth dropped open, but no sound came out. Something was holding his arm in place. Something invisible. No, not invisible. Her. She stood behind him now, hands resting gently on his shoulders like a lover. Her empty eyes fixed on me. That soft, terrifying smile curved her lips. The caretaker tried to scream. Blood poured from his mouth. She leaned down and kissed his forehead, a single gentle kiss, like a blessing. He aged again. His skin turned grey. His bones cracked. His spine snapped. He shriveled in seconds, collapsing like a puppet with its strings cut. When he hit the ground, he was nothing but dust. The knife clattered. Beside me, my heart stopped. She didn't look at the caretaker's remains. She stepped over them and came to me. Her voice entered my mind like silk over knives. "No, one will kill you." She knelt, cold fingers on my cheek. "You don't die." Her lips were at my ear now. "You become." The ground beneath me opened wide, not to swallow me, to welcome me. I felt the entire cemetery tremble like a body. Inhaling, the dead leaned forward in perfect unison, waiting. The fourth bell was ready inside my chest. My heartbeat changed rhythm. It wasn't thumping, it was swinging, pull, release, like a bell. I felt my ribs move on their own, and something inside me reached for the rope that wasn't there. My ribs moved on their own, not expanding with breath, but swinging. Left, right, like a pendulum waiting to strike metal. I gripped my chest in horror. My heartbeat wasn't a beat anymore. It was a countdown. She stood in front of me, graceful, beautiful, wrong. Every movement slow and elegant, like drowning in silk. The dead surrounded us in perfect circles. Rows and rows of them kneeling as if in prayer or worship. Fog rolled between their bodies like smoke from a burning grave. She reached out and placed her hand over my heart. The world stopped. No sound. No night breeze. No distant dogs. No life, only her. "You were always meant to ring," she whispered. Inside me, a pressure built beneath my sternum. Deep, ancient, hungry, I gasped as something twisted my lungs, replacing breath with cold, ringing silence. "I don't want this." I choked. She tilted her head, almost tender. "You did once." Memories slammed into me like lightning years ago. Standing in this same cemetery at night, lantern light flickering, laughing with the others, making the pact, "Let us rule the silence of death." That was my voice. "Let us become the ones even the dead obey." We weren't victims, we were worshippers. We wanted power, and she gave it, but power always demands payment, and now she had come to collect. The ground trembled beneath us like something massive was turning in its sleep. The caretaker's remains, nothing but dust, were carried away by wind that wasn't wind. She leaned close. Her lips grazed my ear. "The bell is not metal. The bell is the heart willing to break the world." My blood turned to ice. I was the bell. Not an object, a person, a chosen one, a sacrifice, a weapon. The first time I rang it by hand. Nope, I would ring it by dying. "No," I gasped. "No!" I tried to crawl away, but the soil rose up around me like living flesh. Hands, but not dead ones, soft ones, warm ones. Her hands burst from the dirt and grabbed my arms. "My legs, my throat," I screamed. The corpses smiled wider. My younger self appeared beside her, calm and proud. "Our bell," he said gently. "Our beautiful bell." "I'm not yours," I roared. She knelt in front of me. Her eyeless gaze pierced deeper than sight. "You are mine more than the beating of my own name. What are you?" I cried for the first time. She smiled with sadness. Her voice softened to a whisper older than language. "I'm the sound between life and death. I am the silence that follows the last heartbeat. I am the moment the world forgets. You. And then her cold hand pressed deeper into my chest, not outside, inside. Her fingers slipped through bone like smoke, wrapping around my heart. I felt everything, every pulse, every memory, every sin. You asked for eternity, she breathed. And eternity has only one door. I felt my heart slow, thump. The Ida graves around us creaked open, thump. The sky sank. Lower, thump. The stars flickered and died. She lifted my heart inside my chest like a conductor raising a baton. All these years, she whispered. I waited for you to ring me free. My voice broke. Free from what? She leaned so close our foreheads touched, and I finally understood. She wasn't trapped in the cemetery. The cemetery was trapped in her, and I was the final key. Ring, she commanded. I felt her pull, my body obeyed. My heart rose in my chest, ready to burst. The world held its breath. The fourth bell was about to sound. And then someone grabbed my wrist, a living hand, warm, strong, desperate. I turned and saw my own face, older, broken, terrified. Not the past version, not the present, the future. My future self looked at me with hollow eyes and whispered, if you ring that bell, you erase the world. His hand was warm, human, alive. It shouldn't have been possible. But he was real. He looked exactly like me. Same face, same eyes. Just older, worn down, exhausted. His clothes were torn, stained with dirt and blood. His hair had gone grey at the temples. His eyes, God, they were empty. Like he had seen the end of everything and kept living anyway. Don't ring it, he whispered. His voice cracked, not with fear, but with memory. I stared in horror. You're me. He nodded slowly, tightening his grip on my wrist, as if holding on to the last rope in existence. I've been trapped in this moment for years. Every time you reach this point, you ring it. Every single time. My bones froze. What? He swallowed hard. You ring the bell. The ground opens. She comes through, and everything ends. He leaned closer, desperate. And then it resets. My pulse throbbed in my ears. Resets? Future me nodded, eyes wild with grief. Time snaps back. You forget. You live your life again. You take the job. You remember. You pull the rope. And I watch it happen over and over and over because I can't die. He looked at the woman, at her. Even without eyes, she stared back, calm and cold. You made me eternal, he whispered to her. You cursed me to watch him become you. Forever. She tilted her head gently, almost lovingly. Eternity is devotion. Future me's grip trembled. She doesn't want the world. She wants the cycle. The worship. The ringing. The suffering. Every ending feeds her. He turned back to me, voice cracking. Please, you're the only version of me who ever hesitated. The only one who might change it. The ground rumbled beneath us. The dead leaned forward, anxious, reverent. The sky twisted into spirals of black and red. The cemetery was no longer just a place. It was a heartbeat. My heartbeat, present me gasped as another surge of power climbed up my spine. My ribs pulled back, ready to swing again. Dong. The sound echoed inside my skull, so loud I thought my head would split. Future me held on tighter. Fight it! I'm trying, I screamed, but the mark blazed with fire. My hands moved on their own. My heart swayed in my chest like a pendulum made of flesh. She owns me, I choked. Future me's expression hardened. Then break what she owns. I can't. Yes, he breathed, you can. He leaned in, eyes locked on mine. She marked your forehead. She marked your heart. But there's one thing she never marked. I stared at him, shaking. What? He pointed to the ground. Your name! The earth groaned. 1,000 voices whispered in unison. Bell, bell, bell. He grabbed my face, forcing my eyes to meet his. She controls you because you forgot who you were before the pact. But I remember. He leaned close and whispered a name into my ear. My real name, not the one I use now. Not the one I put on job applications. The first name I ever had. The name before the bell. Before the graves. Before her, the moment I heard it. Everything stopped. The ground froze. The dead went silent. Even she paused mid-breath. My name echoed through my mind like thunder-breaking chains. I gasped. My heart changed rhythm. For the first time, it beat on its own. Her voice slithered through the air, sharper than a razor. "Give that name back." The fog around us turned black. The graves shook violently. The sky flickered like dying film. Future me staggered, clutching his head. "She's trying to erase it." I clung to the memory of the name, my name, burning it into my mind, refusing to let it go. "She can't have it." I shouted. The dead screamed as one, clawing at the ground. Future me yelled over the roar, "Say it, out loud." I opened my mouth to speak, and she was suddenly in front of me, face inches from mine. Smiling gently, her hands cupped my cheeks, her voice slid into my blood like ice. "If you speak that name, you will no longer be mine." She leaned in, forehead against mine. "And if you are not mine, you will suffer more than death." Her smile widened, beautiful and horrific. "You will be forgotten." My breath caught. Future me screamed, "Don't listen!" The cemetery split open like a mouth. Fire and darkness rose from below. She whispered, "Choose." My name burned on my tongue. Her mark burned in my heart. And I opened my mouth and said, I opened my mouth. Her cold hands held my face like a lover. Her mark burned in my chest like fire. The ground trembled, begging me to stay silent. The dead leaned forward, breathless. The sky folded in on itself, and I spoke my real name, not the one on my uniform, not the one I learned in childhood. The first name, the forbidden name, the one I had buried deeper than any grave. The moment the sound left my lips, the world ripped in half. A shockwave exploded out of me, blasting through the cemetery like a hurricane. Graves shattered. Headstones split. The dead were thrown backward like ragdolls. The fog ignited into ash. She recoiled as if struck. Her hands flew off my face. Her perfect smile vanished. She screamed, not the silent scream of spirits, not the wail of the damned. A real, raw, furious scream, like reality itself protesting what I'd done. The sound made the ground bleed. Future me collapsed, staring at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. You remembered." My heartbeat returned, my own rhythm, not the bells. The mark on my forehead flickered, fighting to stay. It pulsed once, twice, weaker, weaker. I felt her presence tearing through my veins, clawing to keep control. "No," her voice was no longer calm. It cracked. It raged. "You belong to me." She lunged, not floating, not graceful. She pounced, like a starving animal. Her hands slammed into my shoulders, nails burying into flesh. I screamed as black veins spread from her fingers, racing into my skin, trying to drown me from the inside. "Give me back your name," she shrieked. "I won't!" The ground roared. The graves opened like mouths, centuries of bones spilling out. The sky split with lightning made of shadows. The wind howled like 1,000 voices begging me to stop, but I stood, for the first time. I stood against her. My name thundered in my mind, louder than any bell. It echoed through my skull, into my blood, into the earth. "I am not yours," she screeched, and drove her hand into my chest, fingers wrapping around my heart, just like before. But this time, I grabbed her wrist. Her head snapped up in shock. No one had ever touched her before. Not like this. Her skin felt like ice and flame and void all at once. "You can't hold me," she hissed. "Trying to rip free?" "Yes," I snarled, tightening my grip. "I can." The mark on my forehead flared. One final desperate spark, and then died. She froze completely, like the universe itself stopped breathing, the black hollows where her eyes should have been widened. With fear for the first time. She was afraid of me. Future me stared at us, whispering in disbelief, "You broke the pact." The dead began to tremble, looking lost, confused, as if waking from worship. The graves shook violently. The cemetery moaned like a wounded beast. She tried to pull away again, but I held her tighter. "I remember everything now," I growled. "And I take it back," she bared her teeth, voice shaking. "You cannot exist without me." "I existed before you." Lightning split the sky. The earth roared. The moon went dark. I leaned closer, eyes locked on the emptiness in her skull. "And I will exist after." Her voice shattered. "No!" She drove her other hand toward my throat, but something stopped her, not me. The ground. Roots burst from the soil and wrapped around her arms, dragging her back. The cemetery itself pulled at her dress, her hair, her limbs. She screamed in rage, thrashing, clawing the earth to hold on. "You are mine!" The roots yanked harder. "You made me!" The graves groaned. "I am the sound of your sin." The earth opened beneath her feet. "If I fall, you fall with me." She reached for me in desperation, and for the first time, I saw her eyes, not empty, not hollow, terrified. "Please," she whispered. A child's voice, fragile. "Don't leave me alone." My heart cracked. For a split second, I almost reached out to save her. But then the ground roared. Dozens of hands, dead and alive, burst from the soil, all grabbing her, not to worship, to drag her down. The dead had changed their faith, and they no longer knelt to her. I staggered back as she sank, screaming my name. Our connection snapped like lightning. The cemetery shook itself apart. The sky peeled open like torn paper. And then, silence. She was gone, truly gone. And for the first time in forever, I was free. The world held still, waiting, empty. Too empty. I turned slowly. Future me was gone. The caretaker was dust. The graves. Quiet. The night. Breathless. And behind me, something moved, a soft, delicate footstep. In the silence of a world reborn, a woman's voice exhaled in my ear. "Not hers, you let her fall." I froze. "But who do you think took her place?" I turned around and saw someone standing in the ruins of the chapel, wearing my face. She was gone, for the first time in decades, centuries, 1,000 lifetimes. The silence was not her. The stillness was not her. The cemetery finally breathed, but I didn't, because I wasn't alone. In the ruins of the chapel, standing amid broken stone and dried blood, was me. Not the younger me, not the future me, not a memory, me, exactly as I am now. Same face, same eyes, same heartbeat, except he was smiling, calm, peaceful, almost relieved. "Who are you?" I whispered, unable to move. He stepped forward slowly, barefoot on shattered earth. The moonlight clung to him, like it preferred his skin over the sky. "I am the one who stayed," he said softly. Every hair on my body stood on end. "What does that mean?" I asked. He looked around at the cemetery, at the graves, at the darkness in the soil. "She is gone," he said. "But something must take her place." My blood turned to ice. "No." He nodded gently. "There must always be a keeper of the silence, one who stands between the living and the dead, one who keeps the bell from ringing, or chooses when it must." I shook my head. "I won't do it." He smiled sadly. "You already did," my heart pounded. "No." He took another step. His eyes glowed faintly, not with power, but with acceptance. "When you broke the pact, you broke the cycle," he said. "The world is free. She cannot return." He paused. "But the dead still whisper. The ground still remembers. The darkness still waits for doors to open." His gaze pierced me. "If no one guards it, it will all happen again." I staggered back. "Why me? Why always me?" He tilted his head. "Because you are the only one strong enough to say no to eternity." The graves were silent, the fog gentle, the air calm, but beneath it all, I could feel it, the weight, the pull, the responsibility, my responsibility. He stepped closer until we stood face to face. "You were the bell," he said, "but you don't have to ring anymore." He placed a hand over my heart. "I did," he whispered, and I understood. He was the version of me who finally succeeded, the version who stopped the cycle, who lived through the aftermath, who stayed here, alone, holding the silence in place, so I could be free. The version of me who sacrificed everything. He smiled gently. "You came back at the end," he said, "to relieve me." Tears burned my eyes. "I don't want you to disappear." He shook his head. "I'm not disappearing." He guided my hand to the ground. "I'm going home." The soil softened beneath my touch. The cemetery exhaled. The graves hummed softly, not in hunger but in peace. He stepped back and lay down upon the earth like it was a bed he had waited lifetimes to rest in. The soil rose to meet him, cradling his body with reverence. The ground closed gently over him, no struggle, no fear, just silence, beautiful silence, not the silence of death, the silence of rest, of peace, of an ending. And then I heard it, a new sound, not a bell, not a scream. Heartbeat, mine steady, strong, alive. The wind moved through the trees softly as if thanking me. The fog lifted from the graves like a sigh of relief. For the first time, the cemetery felt safe. I stood alone under the moonlight, barefoot on sacred ground, not a prisoner, not a victim, not a bell, a guard. The silence pressed gently against my skin, trusting me, asking me, "Will you keep watch?" I closed my eyes and I said, "Yes." The cemetery settled. The night calmed, the world slept. I stood between life and death and did not feel afraid, because I finally understood the truth. Eternity was never the curse. The curse was serving darkness, but guarding the peace, that was purpose. I turned toward the gates as the first light of morning touched the sky, a new day, a quiet dawn. For now, because somewhere, in some grave, something might stir again. And if it does, I'll be here, watching, waiting, listening, not as her servant, but as the one thing she could never become, merciful. I exhaled into the cold air and smiled. "My name is..." I spoke it into the morning, proud, free, remembered, and the cemetery spoke it back.